British Airways is saying it's going to buy 200 Boeing 737 MAX aircraft, the model which has been grounded since March after 2 fatal crashes. And the American Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, says that President Trump doesn't want war with Iran, but the United States will maintain pressure on Iran to deter further aggression in the Gulf. OK, we're staying with that build-up of tensions in the Gulf. I'm joined in the studio by Dr. Roxanne Farman-Farmayan, lecturer in international relations of the Middle East at the University of Cambridge, and from Washington, Lieutenant General Thomas Spoehr, who was the Deputy Commander of US forces in Iraq. Very good evening to you both. If I could start with you, General Spoehr, and do you feel that there is now a growing possibility of some kind of military conflict in the Gulf region, either by accident or design?
No, I don't think so. I think the United States and the allies are really taking a very measured response to what has been some unprovoked Iranian attacks. They've increased the defensive posture of the units in the area. But really, I think everybody's being very careful to keep this as unescalated and as a low level as possible.
Roxanne Farman-Farmayan, your take on that very question. Do you think that, and I say by accident or design, once you start putting that kind of hardware and personnel in an area, things can happen?
They can, and I think the accident element still is very much alive. However, President Rouhani also has said that he does not want war with any country. And my view on this is that both sides, certainly Iran, is very much in the process of shoring up their positions, so they are in a position of maximum strength when they finally do get to a negotiating table and they have to make concessions.
OK, Lieutenant General Spoehr, give us the sense then of the American strategy here. What does America need to hear from Iran?
I think first and foremost, the U.S. would like to see no more attacks, no more threats to navigation in the Gulf of Oman and the Persian Gulf. And then in a broader sense, we would like Iran to refrain from its export of terrorism and the behavior which has caused them to support Hezbollah, the Houthi rebels in Yemen, and the activities that they're conducting in Syria. I think that's what we'd like to see in a bigger picture.
Well, that's the thing, Dr. Farman-Farmayan, isn't it? That Iran, that list there that Lieutenant General Spoehr points out there, Iran denies that it's doing any of those things.
Well, and I think the problem is that it is not the only actor that is engaged, at least in that kind of thing in the region. I think it's been quite heartening to see Pompeo step back from his list of 12 requirements for negotiation, and it does sound very much as though he's got the upper hand at the moment over John Bolton, who has simply said to get rid of the bomb Iran. So I think there is a sense of growing negotiation positioning.
OK, well, General Spoehr, let me put that point to you. And also, could it be said that perhaps Iran might have learnt from North Korea, put up a few missiles there, cause a bit of disruption in the region, and you too will get a summit with President Trump?
I think the United States has said they are willing to talk to Iran, especially if they discontinue some of this behavior. But I think they've even said they're willing to talk under no conditions. I find that very favorable. We really just want Iran to enter the community of nations and behave like a responsible nation and not take unprovoked attacks on its neighbors and ships in the Gulf of Oman.
But just staying with that, do you see it as a realistic possibility that President Trump could meet with Mr. Rouhani?
I think, we have seen, based on the track record, that you can't rule out something like that. I think President Trump is willing to take the unconventional approach if he sees any possibility that doing so could forge a better peace between our nations.
And Dr. Farman-Farmayan, we've got to address then the Gulf, excuse the pun if it is one, between the United States stance and that of the European Union towards, in particular, this nuclear deal. Is Iran attempting to divide and rule on this issue?
No, I think it has been very disappointed by the EU, but on the other hand, I think the EU is certainly vested in trying to avoid war. Heike Maas from Germany has currently been in Iran trying to negotiate with them to stay in the nuclear deal. It's very difficult, however, because right at the moment, Iran is the only one that is still in the deal, because in many ways the Europeans have been unable to fulfill their promise and the United States has withdrawn. So that is certainly one of the strategic plays here, and I would argue that one of the reasons why Iran has so far not agreed to speak with Trump is because they feel they have the right to call some of the shots on this. And so they would like to be able to ensure they have enough to give away at a negotiation table so that they do not get steamrollered by the Trump administration.
Well, General Spoehr, I mean, the other side of that coin then, how angry, how upset is the United States with the European Union by sticking by the deal?
I think the European Union, European nations in general, are slowly starting to see Iran for what it really is. These attacks have not helped the Iranian position whatsoever. These 4 tanker attacks, the firing of a missile into Saudi Arabia, killing 26 civilians. Everything Iran has done, I think, has undermined any future negotiating position that they might have.
But just on that attitude, General Spoehr, to the European Union and, of course, the UK amongst them, they're sticking with the deal. Is there frustration or more in the United States about that?
I think the United States would like to see the European Union and the nations there understand what the flaws of the nuclear deal and why the United States saw fit to pull out of it. It really was a flawed deal. The restriction would be lifted in a very short amount of time, geopolitically speaking. And so I think we'd like to see the European Union move ahead and understand why that was not a good deal. But we have come to terms with where we are right now.
And Dr. Farman, on those attacks on shipping in the Gulf region, is there any doubt in your mind or the sources that you've been talking to that Iran is ultimately behind them?
Well, certainly the European Union feels as though there's not sufficient evidence to believe that yet. And Iran has denied these. And if we look at where the 2 tankers were, they were actually outside of the straits in the in the Sea of Oman. So in many ways, that would not be the kind of signal that Iran would be sending. And I think the Europeans are very doubtful and want to have considerably more evidence to show. And they feel in some ways as though they've been forced to compromise several different ways with the Americans on this. They feel as though the deal was much better than what we're just seeing now, which is where Iran is going to start creating nuclear nuclear material that was constrained by the treaty. So it's not better to have withdrawn from the perspective of the Europeans.
Last thought from you, General Spoehr, on the extra 1,000 or so American troops going to the region. Do you think could this be a prelude? Could they be a spearhead for more to follow?
No, I don't think so. I think that's a prudent response to what we're seeing on the part of Iran. I would add, I think the proof that Iran committed these attacks is incontrovertible. We've got video of their ships next to the tankers messing around with the decks and the walls of the ships. I mean, there is no other person, no other entity that has the capability nor the motive to conduct these attacks. But this 1,000 or so troops purely for defensive purposes, I don't think that is the prelude to anything.
OK, well, great talking to you both. Thank you very much indeed, both of you, for your analysis. Lieutenant General Spoehr there in the United States and Roxanne Farman here with me in the studio. Thank you both very much indeed.